You can continue watching the briefing online at cspan.org. We're leaving it to fulfill our longtime commitment to live, gavel-to-gavel coverage. Senators are meeting to begin the second impeachment trial against former President Trump. They'll begin by calling all senators to the floor.
Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Bennett. Mrs. Blackburn. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Blunt. Mr. Booker.
It's just the oath, the regular oath.
Mr. Bozeman.
You have that?
Mr. Braun. Mr. Brown. Mr. Burr. Ms. Cantwell. Mrs. Capito. Mr. Cardin. Mr. Carper. Mr. Casey. Mr. Cassidy.
The U.S. Senate back in session after their party meetings. They are in what's called a live quorum, calling senators to the floor ahead of 2:30 Eastern, when they will be sworn in as the court of impeachment against former President Donald Trump. We also expect a resolution to be introduced by Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, objecting to the proceedings. That's ahead. The live quorum underway here on the Senate floor, and as it continues, we'll take you back live to the Democrats' briefing we were showing you a short while ago.
The January 6th insurrection to make clear we reject his and others' attempts to allow brute force to win over democracy in this country. Our to-do list is long, and it is ambitious because it has to be given all that we face. I'd also like to note that everyone in our country is struggling with this pandemic. Everyone. Every family benefits from having the Biden-Harris administration complete and able to tackle challenges like public health, work, education, and more in this moment. Every citizen should be able to trust their elected officials will stand up for their right to have their vote counted rather than overruled by a violent mob. So after the last 2 weeks of unnecessary delay, we will continue to urge our Republican colleagues to work with rather than against us in this incredibly difficult, pivotal moment for our country. But I also want to be clear, we are going to get things done. And most importantly, what I'd like families in my home state of Washington and nationwide to hear today is this. We know how difficult things are. We're going to get to work fast. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Senator Stabenow.
Well, thank you very much. I'm afraid of what Senator Schumer's name is. I don't know, Debbie. I don't know. But, well, I'm so pleased to be here with our Senate leadership team, and I have to say it's an exciting moment as we turn the page with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris and a new Democratic majority in the Senate and the House. 4 years ago, when the Republicans came in this same time, 2017, they made it very clear who their priority was. Very clear. They moved forward full speed on budget reconciliation to push through a $2 trillion tax cut for the wealthiest and most well-connected people in the country. We have a different priority, a different set of folks that we care about. We care about everybody else who wasn't included in that picture. Working families, folks in the middle class, folks trying to get in the middle class, people who are poor, low-wealth Americans who have been left behind and yet have been the ones at the front of this crisis, working when we didn't have to. We're Zooming, they're essential workers, and people over and over again who've been impacted by this crisis. So what President has proposed, what we are working on in support, is to robustly and quickly help everyone both have their capacity to be healthy and save lives and be able to get our arms around this so everyone can get a vaccine, and also to focus on people's livelihoods. Everybody's life has been turned upside down, let's face it, everybody's. And we understand that we have got people who need to have not only their job, their small business, their farm, but children have got to go back to school. All of these things need to happen so we in America can get back to living our lives in a safe way and give everybody a fair shot to succeed in our country. That's what we're about, and we're going to work our hearts out to get that done.
Thank you, my colleagues. We're going to have to be quick today because we have to be on the floor at 2:30.
Do you foresee changing the way that the Senate runs in terms of working more days? Will there be more amendment votes than there have been in the past? I know part of the 2000 agreement was not to build an amendment tree for the two leaders. How do you expect the Senate to change?
Look, we hope we can get a more open process. Under Leader McConnell, it's been totally closed. We've hardly done any legislating. The House sent over 260 some odd bills, and none of them saw the light of day. We want to have a more open process. Our number one goal, we have to get big, bold things done, both to deal with COVID and to deal with the underlying crises in America, such as climate, such as economic and racial inequality, such as making our democracy more perfect. That is our number one goal, and we will try to work the Senate so much more is accomplished than when McConnell was leader. Yes?
Leader Schumer, you're talking, it sounds like you're going to move very quickly on reconciliation, like, possibly. Do you have all 50 of your Democratic senators who would support reconciliation and the contents of that bill?
Look, we haven't even seen the details of the bill yet, so obviously that's a premature question. But I think our caucus is united in that we need big, bold change.
Thank you, Senator Schumer. In 2013, with the nuclear option, Democrats said, no, we're not going to go down that road. The filibuster will still be here. 10 months later, they opened the door on nuclear option 1. Can you, number one, guarantee that in 10 months that won't be the case? And how do you explain to those who are pushing the Democrats to get rid of the filibuster that we can't do that right now? How do you?
The bottom line is very simple. We are united in that we need big, bold change in America, and we will figure out the best way to get that done. Next.
You've got several new members of your caucus. How do you suggest they get ready for impeachment? What should they be reading and what should they be doing?
Well, they can study the previous trials and see how the procedures operated. But I think that this one, the American people were witness to what happened. We all were witness to what happened. And so you don't need to delve into details of things you don't know as much because so much of it was clear. And look, to me, what Trump did was the most despicable thing any president has ever done. I believe he should be convicted. Yes?
Senator, the Biden administration has laid out, obviously, an ambitious agenda on immigration and climate and other issues. They seem to have been open to potentially breaking some of those things down instead of one larger package. Is that something that you might consider?
Look, I read that in the paper today. I haven't had any discussions with them about that at this point. We're focused on getting a good COVID bill done. Last one.
On the impeachment
No, I
trial,
don't want to
have
skip
you given thought to how long it needs to last, what witnesses you'd like to hear, testimony you'd like to hear?
We're still negotiating on the trial with Leader McConnell. So far, the negotiations have worked out pretty well. We came to an agreement that met our needs and his. He needed some time for the Trump lawyers to prepare. We wanted time to do COVID and nominations. Let's hope it continues along that vein. Last one.
Leader, you said that you want to have a bipartisan deal and that you want to see what the details are in the package before you talk about things like reconciliation. How long are you willing to wait on Republicans to come to the table and negotiate something before you go down a road like reconciliation?
We have to see what they say in the next few days. Some of the comments, admittedly, have been disheartening. Some of them have rejected things right now, but we're always hopeful that some of them will see the light. And remember, even on reconciliation, Republicans can join us and vote for it. That's happened many times in the past. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Organizing resolution this week,
And Senate Democratic leadership hurrying to the Senate floor as the live quorum is underway, is calling senators to the floor ahead of the swearing in of senators as the jurors for the impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump. We also expect either before that swearing in or just after an effort by Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky made his intention known before the Senate went into their recess at 12:30 or so. He's raising objections to the constitutionality of impeaching a former president. So we will likely see some sort of motion raised and a vote on the floor on that, on the Senate floor, before they get underway here with the proceedings. And it's a pretty prescribed day. They'll swear in the senators, and then we expect Senator Schumer to make a number of motions to allow the trial to get underway in 2 weeks' time. It's set to get underway to start on Tuesday, February the 9th. So we'll stay here live on C-SPAN 2 and watch the senators come to the floor and the proceedings get underway. We expect that proceedings will get underway shortly on the Senate floor in the impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump. There will be a swearing in of senators, and at some point, either before or after that, Senator Rand Paul will be recognized, at least his motion, his attempt to halt the proceedings. He thinks the proceedings are unconstitutional. The Senate will vote on that. He would need 50 votes in a Democratic-controlled, he'd need 51 Democratic-controlled Senate. It is likely he's not going to get it. But what he does say in comments to reporters this afternoon is that he says, my hope is to get 40 Republicans to vote with me. And if they do, he says, that shows they don't have the votes to impeach at this point. Keep in mind that the ultimate impeachment vote to find the president guilty of that article of impeachment, they need 2/3 of the Senate, so 67 would need to vote in favor of impeachment. But look for that vote coming up shortly, and we will have a count on the screen here of the vote on the Rand Paul measure coming up shortly. Senator Patrick Leahy presiding in the U.S. Senate. The proceedings of the impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump about to get underway. The Republican leader Mitch McConnell coming to his seat after conversing with other senators. This is live coverage here on C-SPAN 2.
Mr. Young.
A quorum is present, and under the previous order, the hour of 2:30 p.m. having arrived, a quorum having been established, the Senate will proceed to consideration of the article of impeachment against Donald John Trump, the former President of the United States.
Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, at this time, pursuant to Rule 4 of the Senate Rules on Impeachment and the United States Constitution, the President pro tem emeritus, the Senator from Iowa, will now administer the oath to the President pro tem, Patrick J. Leahy.
Please raise your right hand. Your hands on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear that to all things appertaining to the trial of the impeachment of Donald John Trump, former President of the United States, now pending, that you will do impartial justice according to the Constitution and the laws? So help you God.
I do, so help me God. Thank you, my President.
God bless you.
At this time, I will administer the oath to the senators in the chamber in conformance with Article 1, Section 3, Clause 6 of the Constitution and the Senate's impeachment rules. Will all senators now rise and raise their right hand? Do you solemnly swear that in all things appertaining to the trial of the impeachment of Donald John Trump, former President of the United States, now pending, you will do impartial justice according to the Constitution and laws, so help you God? To call the names in groups of 4, senators will present themselves at the desk to sign the oath book.
Ms. Baldwin. Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Blackburn. Mr. Blumenthal, Mr. Blunt, Mr. Booker, Mr. Bozeman. Mr. Braun. Mr. Brown, Mr. Burr, Ms. Cantwell. Mrs. Capito, Mr. Cardin, Mr. Carper, Mr. Casey. Mr. Cassidy, Ms. Collins, Mr. Coons, Mr. Cornyn. Ms. Cortez Masto, Mr. Cotton, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Crapo. Mr. Cruz, Mr. Daines, Ms. Duckworth, Mr. Durbin. Miss Ernst, Mrs. Feinstein, Mrs. Fisher, Mrs. Gillibrand. Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mr. Haggerty, Ms. Hassan. Mr. Hawley, Mr. Heinrich, Mr. Hickenlooper, Ms. Hirono. Mr. Hoven, Mrs. Hyde-Smith, Mr. Inhofe, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Kane, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. King. Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Langford, Mr. Leahy, Mr. Lee. Mr. Lujan, Ms. Lummis, Mr. Manchin, Mr. Markey. Mr. Marshall, Mr. McConnell, Mr. Menendez, Mr. Markley, Mr. Moran, Ms. Markowski, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Ossoff, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Paul, Mr. Peters, Mr. Portman, Mr. Reed, Mr. Risch, Mr. Romney, Ms. Rosen, Mr. Rounds, Mr. Rubio, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Sass, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Scott of Florida, Mr. Scott of South Carolina, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Shelby, Ms. Sinema, Ms. Smith, Ms. Stabenow, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Tester. Mr. Thune, Mr. Tillis, Mr. Toomey, Mr. Tuberville. Mr. Van Hollen, Mr. Warner, Mr. Warnock, Ms. Warren. Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Mr. Young.
Microphone. It'll turn it on. Speeches, and I try to. For me, I put that little lectern.
Three. I'm going to get order first. The Senate will be in order. Senate will be in order. The acting Sergeant at Arms will make the proclamation.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All persons are commanded to keep silence on pain of imprisonment while the House of Representatives is exhibiting to the Senate of the United States an article of impeachment against Donald John Trump, former President of the United States.
Mr. President.
To the Senator from Kentucky.
Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution says, the President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Article 1, Section 3, Clause 6 states, when the President of the United States is tried, the Chief Justice shall preside. As of noon last Wednesday, Donald Trump holds none of the positions listed in the Constitution. He is a private citizen. The presiding officer is not the Chief Justice, nor does he claim to be. His presence and the Chief Justice's absence demonstrate that this is not a trial of the President, but of a private citizen. Therefore, I make a point of order that this proceeding, which would try a private citizen and not a president, a vice president, or civil officer, violates the Constitution and is not in order.
Under the precedents of the Senate regarding constitutional points of order, including those of the Senate while sitting as a court of impeachment, the chair submits the question to the Senate. Is the point of order well taken?
Mr. President.
The Majority Leader.
The theory that the impeachment of a former official is unconstitutional is flat out wrong by every frame of analysis: constitutional context, historical practice, precedent, and basic common sense. It's been completely debunked by constitutional scholars from all across the political spectrum. Now, the junior senator from Kentucky read one clause from the Constitution about the Senate's impeachment powers. He left out another from Article 3, Section 2, quote, judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than to removal from office and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States, unquote. If the framers intended impeachment to merely be a vehicle to remove sitting officials from their office, they would not have included that additional provision, disqualification from future office. The Constitution also gives the Senate, quote, the sole power to try all impeachments. So what have past Senates decided on this question? In 1876, President Grant's Secretary of War, William Belknap, literally raced to the White House to tender his resignation before the House was set to vote on his impeachment. Not only did the House move forward with the impeachment, but the Senate convened a trial and voted as a chamber that Mr. Belknap could be tried, quote, for acts done as Secretary of War, notwithstanding his resignation of said office. The language is crystal clear, without any ambiguity. The history and precedent is clear. The Senate has the power to try former officials, and the reasons for that are basic common sense. It makes no sense whatsoever that a president or any official could commit a heinous crime against our country and then defeat Congress's impeachment powers and avoid a vote on disqualification by simply resigning, or by waiting to commit that offense until their last few weeks in office. The theory that the Senate can't try former officials would amount to a constitutional get-out-of-jail-free card for any president who commits an impeachable offense. Ironically, the senator from Kentucky's motion would do an injury to the Constitution by rendering the disqualification clause effectively moot. So again, by constitutional text, precedent, and common basic sense, it is clearly and certainly constitutional to hold a trial for a former official. Former President Trump committed, in the view of many, including myself, the gravest offense ever committed by a president of the United States. The Senate will conduct a trial of the former president, and senators will render judgment on his conduct. Therefore, the point of order is ill-founded and, in any case, premature. If senators want this issue debated, it can and will be argued during the trial. Therefore, I move to table the point of order, and I ask for the yeas and nays.
Is there a sufficient second? There is a sufficient second. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin. Aye. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Bennett. Mrs. Blackburn. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Blunt. Mr. Booker. Mr. Bozeman. Mr. Braun. Mr. Brown. Mr. Burr. Ms. Cantwell. Mrs. Capito. Mr. Cardin. Mr. Carper. Mr. Casey. Mr. Cassidy. Ms. Collins. Mr. Coons. Mr. Cornyn. Ms. Cortez Masto. Mr. Cotton. Mr. Kramer. Mr. Crapo. Mr. Cruz. Mr. Daines. Ms. Duckworth. Mr. Durbin. Ms. Ernst. Mrs. Feinstein. Mrs. Fisher. Mrs. Gillibrand. Mr. Graham. Mr. Grassley. Mr. Haggerty. Ms. Hassan. Mr. Hawley. Mr. Heinrich. Mr. Hickenlooper. Ms. Hirono. Mr. Hoven. Mrs. Hyde-Smith. Mr. Inhofe. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Kane. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kennedy. Mr. King. Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Langford. Mr. Leahy. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lujan. Ms. Lummis. Mr. Manchin. Mr. Markey. Mr. Marshall. Mr. McConnell. Mr. Menendez. Mr. Merkley. Mr. Moran. Ms. Murkowski. Mr. Murphy. Mrs. Murray. Mr. Ossoff. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Paul. Mr. Peters. Mr. Portman. Mr. Reed. Mr. Risch. Mr. Romney. Ms. Rosen. Mr. Rounds. Mr. Rubio. Mr. Sanders. Mr. Sass. Mr. Schatz. Mr. Schumer. Mr. Scott of Florida. Mr. Scott of South Carolina. Mrs. Shaheen. Mr. Shelby. Ms. Sinema. Ms. Smith. Ms. Stabenow. Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Tester. Mr. Thune. Mr. Tillis. Mr. Toomey. Mr. Tuberville. Mr. Van Hollen. Mr. Warner. Mr. Warnock. Ms. Warren. Mr. Whitehouse. Mr. Wicker. Mr. Wyden. Mr. Young.
In this vote, the ayes are 55, the nays are 45. The motion to table is agreed to. The point of order is not sustained. Majority Leader.
Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
I have a resolution to organize the pretrial proceedings at the desk.
Clerk will report.
Senate Resolution 16 to provide for related procedures concerning the article of impeachment against Donald John Trump, President of the United States.
I ask for the yeas and nays.
Is there a sufficient second? There is a sufficient second. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Bennett. Mrs. Blackburn. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Blunt. Mr. Booker. Mr. Bozeman. Mr. Braun. Mr. Brown. Mr. Burr. Ms. Cantwell. Mrs. Capito. Mr. Cardin. Mr. Carper. Mr. Casey. Mr. Cassidy. Ms. Collins. Mr. Coons. Mr. Cornyn. Ms. Cortez Masto. Mr. Cotton. Mr. Kramer. Mr. Crapo. Mr. Cruz. Mr. Daines. Ms. Duckworth. Mr. Durbin. Ms. Ernst. Mrs. Feinstein. Mrs. Fisher. Mrs. Gillibrand. Mr. Graham. Mr. Grassley. Mr. Haggerty. Ms. Hassan. Mr. Hawley. Mr. Heinrich. Mr. Hickenlooper. Ms. Hirono. Mr. Hoven. Mrs. Hyde-Smith. Mr. Inhofe. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Kane. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kennedy. Mr. King. Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Langford. Mr. Leahy. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lujan. Ms. Lummis. Mr. Manchin. Mr. Markey. Mr. Marshall. Mr. McConnell. Mr. Menendez. Mr. Merkley. Mr. Moran. Ms. Murkowski. Mr. Murphy. Mrs. Murray. Mr. Ossoff. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Paul. Mr. Peters. Mr. Portman. Mr. Reed. Mr. Risch. Mr. Romney. Ms. Rosen. Mr. Rounds. Mr. Rubio. Mr. Sanders. Mr. Sass. Mr. Schatz. Mr. Schumer. Mr. Scott of Florida. Mr. Scott of South Carolina. Mrs. Shaheen. Mr. Shelby. Ms. Sinema. Ms. Smith. Ms. Stabenow. Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Tester. Mr. Thune. Mr. Tillis. Mr. Toomey. Mr. Tuberville. Mr. Van Hollen. Mr. Warner. Mr. Warnock. Ms. Warren. Mr. Whitehouse. Mr. Wicker. Mr. Wyden. Mr. Young.
On this motion, the yeas are 83, the nays are 17. The resolution is agreed to.
Mr. President,
Majority Leader.
I move the Senate sitting as a court of impeachment adjourn until Tuesday, February 9th, 2021, under the provisions of S-Res 16.
On the motion, is there? All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate sitting as a court of impeachment is adjourned until Tuesday, February at 1 p.m.